Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. As he mentioned, I was in the tech industry until 2017, but I'm going to give you a bit of a background of my experience and really the importance of brand and how I even got from the tech industry to the jewelry industry. So I actually started my career as a graphic designer, and I had the privilege of working with multiple brands, both in the United States and globally, that have not only wonderful brand stories, but, for example, Method, I was there when the team was 35 people. It had just entered Target and started disrupting the entire cleaning industry, taking brand share away from Procter & Gamble, and really kind of moving into a sustainable field of cleaning. So starting at a brand that's so young and really putting a foot forward is a very interesting experience to be a part of. From there, and multiple other ones, I had the privilege of working at Apple. I started at Apple in 2007, sorry. And I had the privilege of being there before the iPhone was announced. And I also had the privilege of working on the very first iPhone launch. As a graphic designer, working with a very small team. At the time, the entire design department was 200 people. Now there are over 3,000 people that are part of that department. Sitting through all the meetings, getting all of the feedback straight from Steve Jobs through text messages, sending people running across the street, you really understood the importance of brand and what brand at the center of a company before a consumer even sees anything, every element, every touch point, and the importance of that. Transition from there, I actually moved into iTunes. Starting in iTunes, I was one of 2 people on the marketing team managing marketing across 60 countries, and then moved over to product development, doing product vision, helping support Apple Music launch, and among other things at Apple. But as any kind of thing goes, my husband and I started talking, what was next for us? The tech industry had been fun, been very stressful, worked with amazing people, but it was time to find out what was next. So it came about, what were we going to do? And really it harkens back to 2 things for us. One is a story. And I was 6 years old when I first had my main moment of what it was like to give jewelry. My father came up to me and said, go and grab your money. We're going to go buy your mom a Christmas gift. I said, okay. At the time I had $20 and I was like, I wonder where we're going to go. He pulled up in front of the jewelry store that we had been to often when I was a child. We knew the owner. I knew that he made all these amazing designs. And I remember sitting in the car going, my $20 isn't going to go very far here. I don't know why Dad's bringing me. Secretly hoping that maybe he'll fit the rest of the bill because, I wanted to buy my mother something. So he let me go in the store, and as soon as he walked through the door, he goes, okay, Heather, go. It's time for you to go look around, find something that you really want to give your mother. The owner of the store came and said, okay, let me show you a few things that she's come in and she's looked at in the last few weeks. So he led me into each of the tables, and he showed me each piece. I asked about other ones she hadn't been looking at. But I had settled on this golden tourmaline ring. I loved everything about it. And I looked at the owner and I said, that's the one. That's what I want to give my mother. And he goes, that sounds wonderful. And I go, well, how much is it? I go, I only have $20. He goes, it only costs $20. I remember he packaged it up. I took it and I put it under the Christmas tree, waiting for Christmas morning so that my mother would open it. That moment of joy of being able to give her something that she would love forever. Well, I lucked out because she did. She opened it up. She still has it to this day. I had her pull it out just the other week so she could take some photos of it for me. That was the moment I knew that jewelry could transcend so many things. It's emotional. It's amazing to give the gift of jewelry, but also to receive it as well. So that's one of my most prized memories. I later found out several years later that my mother and father had already put a credit card down to actually cover the difference between the $20 to the full price. But at 6 years old, I didn't care. I didn't even know better. So with that said, my husband and I forged our way into the jewelry industry. Our goal was to use our skill sets within product development, online, and marketing to pave a way in this online field to highlight the stories of great independent designers from all over the world, sharing them with people who would never have the opportunity to come across them without much research or Instagram searching. So this combines our love of not only the jewelry industry, but our love of travel. One other aspect of our lives that we're very passionate about is travel, understanding different cultures, everything about culture and style. It just comes to life for us, and jewelry is a part of that. The black pearls I'm wearing right now were purchased on our honeymoon in Tahiti. You know, the moment and those touch points that jewelry can create. And every time I wear them, I remember that memory. I remember that visit. And there's gemstones that come from all over the world that can harken back to a trip, a moment, a cultural type that really kind of enhances the gift and enhances life. So with this, the joy of discovery, the joy of giving, and the joy of receiving really was at the core of our company. And these are a few things I can share for later. But we get into the importance of brand. We're building a brand. The goal is to, how do we create a brand that creates an online marketplace, but also understand that we're the caretaker of other people's brands. We're the caretaker of the designers that are choosing to exhibit their product for sale on our site. So we take great care in understanding how we represent our brand, as well as how do we cater and support theirs. So with that said, there's definitely a few touch points here. One is understanding where brand is today. So brand used to just mean, what's your logo, what's your name, what are those few key components that would represent you. Brand has changed. A brand is a sum of all expressions by which a company, organization, or in sometimes an individual intends to be recognized. And there are now multiple levels of brand that really must be understood and curated to present to a potential consumer. So obviously the standard of brand, the name, logo, style, that's what really everybody knows at their heart. But really the persona, this is becoming the new realm, the why. Why do you do what you do? Not what do you do, but why is the core of what you're doing every single day. Communication, so a combination of all activities. So how do you talk on the phone? How are you sending emails? How are you having a discussion with those? How are you creating all of your marketing materials? How is your brand consistent throughout? And then culture. And this is probably one that everyone in this room understands very well. The culture that you have inside your own companies, the culture of the salesperson on the floor, all of that needs to be enraptured in what your brand presents to a consumer. Consumers these days, they experience a brand not just with their eyes, it's with their ears. When they walk into an experience, it's every touch point of their senses is exposed to your brand. The biggest one now is, especially with the evolution of technology, it's probably the only constant is change. So no brand can stand still. Every brand must continue to evolve and push forward. It's one of these understandings that to have a successful brand is sometimes you're going to have to look to the future and continue to see how you evolve. What's your next step? And here's a few questions that I think everybody should ask themselves. In order to be successful, today's brands must be able to answer these. Are you creating a differentiated customer experience across each and every touch point? Are you leveraging your brand for greater business growth and ROI? Are you anticipating trends inside the industry? Are you challenging your brand to have a competitive edge in entering new categories, markets, or forging new partnerships? And lastly, are you creating emotional bonds and instilling a sense of purpose among your customer? I think that last one, the last two are actually incredibly important. A few key things is, I would anticipate on top of this is your brand authentic to you today? Maybe it's a brand or a company that's been in the family for a long time and there's a lot of great, wonderful history. How are you representing that history today? What's that path forward for that history? So with that, I'm going to actually give a few minutes back because I know that time is of the essence. But my core component, my leave away today is, where do you stand today? Where do you want to go tomorrow? What's the most important elements of your brand? Is it time to maybe think about evolution of your brand? Is it time to consider what's next? I know we've had a few speakers talk about experiential opportunities. That's a really great way of evolving your brand and to see what is next. To say and to stay put, unfortunately, the consumers are going to continue to move and move on. So it is a great opportunity. I think there's nothing but excitement in front of not only this industry, but I think every industry as it relates to what digital technology can do for companies. Thank you.